Welcome back to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
It is a good morning here on the Coffee Hour. So much going on, and with the challenges that have been presented with the COVID-19 pandemic, how do we continue education, and how do teachers continue education? We have the unconference coming up, and more to share with you about that. So we have a number of guests, and this is really fun when we have so many guests on in one time, packed into 12 minutes of the Coffee Hour. This is coming up at Concordia University Chicago, which also happens to be our alma mater. So
yeah, go Cougars.
So we have joining us today, is it Dr. Thies? Is that right?
That is correct.
Thanks so much for joining us today, Anne, assistant professor and coordinator of elementary education at Concordia University Chicago. Thanks for being our guest today on the Coffee Hour.
Thanks for having us.
And Professor Amy Stradtmann, assistant professor and coordinator of middle grades for education at Concordia University Chicago. Amy, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Thank you.
Glad to have you with us. And also Professor Jared Stiek, assistant professor of Lutheran teacher education at Concordia University Chicago. Professor Stiek, thanks so much for being our guest today.
Thank you for hosting us.
Absolutely. So Dr. Thies, tell us a little bit about the upcoming unconference.
So we are hosting an unconference, and it's 5 sessions throughout the summer. And really it is an opportunity for Lutheran educators and administrators to come together and really talk about and share their experiences that they've had over the last 4 months as we've entered this world pandemic. And, our mission and our goal is to bring Lutheran educators and administrators together and with the opportunity to work together and share our ideas and things that went really well in online virtual learning over the last 4 months, and then things that maybe were difficult and that, we have the opportunity now to share how to walk through that together.
What are some of the unique challenges facing Lutheran educators during this time when they reflect on the last couple of months and then moving forward into next school year?
I think some of the challenges included, when we first started with distance learning, we were all thrown into it without any training at all. And not only that, it was a case of we didn't have that opportunity to be able to bounce off ideas from our fellow educators. And then there was the amount of resources. There are so many resources out there. And so being able to figure out, what worked and what worked for, which level, and then to be able to walk through and directly teach that to your students and to your parents, and to be able to do that in a virtual format without being able to stand over your student's shoulder or your parent's shoulder to be able to guide them through that. And so now being able to have that opportunity. So, so how can I fine tune that? What works for each individual teacher? What worked well for them? What didn't work well for them? So one of our goals for this conference is to be able to find out from different teachers what worked for them and what didn't work for them. So hopefully together as a group of Lutheran educators, because we do education just a little bit differently than our public school counterparts. How can we make this happen together, and how can we work together side by side on this?
So what are some of the opportunities for teachers to take advantage of during this time?
As this was a semester unlike any other, we talked about an opportunity or a conference that would be unlike any other, thus the name Unconference, but the opportunity to gather panels of teachers, administrators, people in ministry to have conversations that are recorded and provided on our conference website for free, that teachers and administrators can view. And we're working to continue growing this opportunity for perhaps ways that teachers, faculties can can have discussions about these resources, share ideas, look at which ideas might be helpful in their circumstances. It might be a springboard to a new idea for their specific ministry. But the idea that this would just open the conversation that perhaps was maybe shut down, along with so many other things that were shut down during the stay-at-home times.
Mm-hmm. So tell us about the topics that will be covered during the unconference and what educators will be able to get out of this experience.
Well, some of the topics that we'll be talking about, the first week is teaching without tears. Another week that I believe it's week 2 is how to lead during a pandemic, and that we have a panel of 5 different administrators throughout the United States with a variety of different experiences. Our third week addresses self-care, because teaching during that pandemic, teaching during distance learning was so incredibly overwhelming. How do you take care of yourself as an educator? Our fourth week has to deal with motivating the unmotivated. How do you engage that learner in a distance learning format, whether it's a synchronous or an asynchronous setup? And then the final week is how do you prepare for teaching in a distance learning format going into this next year?
I know in my son's school, in our school where my son attends, that the teachers were just as resilient in, when we had to make changes very quickly and turned around things so quickly. They were just as resilient and jumped right back in with great plans, and they didn't seem too overwhelmed, at least in the Zoom meetings. They didn't seem too overwhelmed. But I'm sure that with this happening near the end of the school year, it gave them hopefully a little bit of a chance to take some time to catch their breath and prepare for the next, for the fall as well. So that self-care is so important, having that time to rest. I can't imagine what this would be like had this happened earlier in the school year without that time for them to rest before rebooting and getting ready for fall again as well. We have just a few minutes left. Any stories that you've heard, any more stories that you want to share before we wrap up here, and we'll also share how to register for the conference as well.
I think the feedback that we've received overwhelmingly has been really, really positive and so encouraging. Administrators and educators from across the globe have reached out to us and not only how can they help and be a part of this unconference, but where can I log in and how long is it going to be available for? So even in speaking with my husband last night, there's a real need for this, we believe, and a real desire to work together as Lutheran educators and administrators for the betterment of all of our students. And we're just really, really encouraged by that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm excited by the stories of hope and encouragement and excitement that each one of these teachers are so excited to share their stories of success and what works well. And I think that says a lot about the ministry and the passion that our Lutheran educators have. And I'm thrilled that we're able to spotlight their stories too. Mm-hmm. So registering for this conference, there is no registration. They merely are to go to the Concordia website. There's a link that you will be able to access either via our Facebook page or Jared, can you speak to this further?
Sure. So if you go to cuchicago.edu/unconference, you'll be taken to the page with the links to the video sessions, handouts, even some opportunities perhaps for professional development credit, if that's tied to your state licensure. And a host of resources will be there. And so again, that's the Concordia website, cuchicago.edu/unconference. There's no fee, there's no registration, there's no schedule. Sounds a lot like the rest of life the last 4 months. But,
And so these sessions start Monday. Is that right?
Yes, our first session starts Monday, June 22nd, and that one is how to maximize teaching and learning without tears. And then the next following Monday, June 29th, is how to be an administrator during a pandemic, followed by July 13th, how to motivate the unmotivated. July 20th, how to teach during a pandemic and stay sane. And then we'll finalize kind of the last session is July 27th, is how to start the school year. So we are really excited, as Jared said, at cuchicago.edu/unconference, and we will post those on the indicated dates, and they'll be available. They'll be posted and then available throughout the summer. So if the teacher or administrator is not available on that date, they'll be posted and kept up on our link for the rest of the summer.
Dr. Ann Thies, Assistant Professor and Coordinator of Elementary Education, Professor Amy Stradtmann, and Professor Jared Stiek, all at Concordia University Chicago for the Unconference. Thank you so much for being our guest today on the Coffee Hour.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
You've been listening to the Coffee Hour. I'm Andy Bates.
I'm Sarah Gulseth.
Coming up next week, Share-a-thon, June 25th, 26th, and 27th. Join us, pledge your support of KFUO.
The Coffee Hour with Andy and Sarah is a production of KFUO. To support the Coffee Hour and KFUO Radio, visit KFUO.org. You can also text KFUO to 41444 or send an email to gifts@kfuo.org. And you can call us at 800-844-0524. KFUO. Christ for you, anytime, anywhere.